Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Hey, guys, it's me, John Davis, and I am here today with my good friend, my wonderful co-host, my compatriot in compassion, the one, the only Tamara Zoner. Hello, Tamara Zoner. How are you today?
Hello, John Davis. I'm dandy. How are you?
You're dandy. Ooh, hello. I'm a dandy. I'm your huckleberry. Anyway, so how today is? I'm doing well. Everything is great. I finished that fast a couple of weeks ago, and transitioning into food again, and some of it has been interesting, but everything's going great. Everything's going wonderful. And today we have an interesting topic, and the topic is connecting to spirit and the varied ways with which one does that. Mm-hmm. So, do you have a specific way that you do that?
I do. And before I get into it, I want to ask you, because I just thought of this question as you were talking about the cleanse or the fast. Did you feel that as your body became clearer, that you were able to more deeply connect to spirit, or more easily connect without all the interference of all the chemicals in our food and drinks and things?
It's the number one question I got during the whole process.
Okay.
And I will tell you that there was no big light show. There was no big metaphysical woo crazy thing that happened. Mm-hmm. But when I fast, and I fasted many times in my life, okay. and when I fast, the first thing that happens is my clarity of thought gets ridiculously clear. I mean, ridiculously clear. It's to the point where nothing can hinder me. I don't forget anything. I get very, very clear. My physical body loses all of its aches and pains that are accompanied by whatever else I do. And I end up, because of the biggest issue you have while fasting is not hunger, because hunger goes away very quickly. The biggest issue you have is conditioning. You're conditioned to eat certain times of day. And so certain times of day come along and you go, I'm supposed to be eating now. I'm supposed to be preparing lunch now. So your mind goes to those places. Mm-hmm. And after you break past that, you suddenly don't have those things happening any longer. And so now suddenly you have a lot more time and a lot more energy. And so as far as connecting that to spirituality, because your mind is clearer, because you have more time, you tend to be more present. Mm-hmm. And you tend to be more active. And so I believe spirituality lives in the I am moment. And so is it a big spiritual experience? Sure it is. Sure it is. But it's an experience of recognizing your oneness with God and your oneness with Source, and your present moment as the creative moment of your life.
I love that. And you know what? I felt that very much when I did not do a food fast, but I did a media fast and a human interaction fast. And I took 3 days last year, I think, where I turned off the phone. I told everyone I loved, don't talk to me. I didn't even listen to music with words or read books. It was all journaling, mindfully moving through my day. I did all the things I normally do, but no social media, no reading, no websites, journaling. The only thing I gave myself permission with outside messages was yoga videos, so that I could do extended yoga during that time, because I had a whole lot of time. It's also amazing how much more time you have when you put your phone down. So that I felt that presence, and that very much in tune with all that is, and connected and deeply able to hear my own wisdom. And the first day was pretty hard. you know, you have this habit of reaching for things, and so I was just aware of it, and you know, kind of compassionately talk to myself through those moments of like, hey, this is cool, look at this is uncomfortable, this is an addiction. I always like to break myself of any addictions that I feel like I have. So media, the phone, filling the space with things that really don't matter, and letting other messages come in instead of hearing the one that is within. So yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
um
I love the idea of taking a break, because this whole connecting to source thing that we're about to talk about really does come down to you taking a break from things that don't allow you to acknowledge your connection to source.
right, we're already talking about it, man.
We're in it deep, baby. We're in it deep. you know, you know.
We're in it.
Yeah, it's our connection to source is an interesting thing. I like my mother. Her connection to source was the church, right?
Mhm.
And when she had her big spiritual out of body experience, it was during a mass. So that was not only her spiritual experience was her church, but now she had a validation of it. So it became very much her life. And so, for her, going to church and being of service that way was her connection to source. Now,
That's
for me, I can go sit in the backyard
mhm.
and I can have a complete experience of connection to source. But I can also sit here and talk to my good friend Tamara's owner and laugh out loud,
Mhm.
like you and I often do.
Yes.
And in that moment, that to me is a connection to source. That is a feeling, and I truly believe source is not a thinking; it's a feeling.
Mhm.
And by laughing with my friend, I am experiencing God. I'm experiencing the source,
Yes.
because we're in our I am moment. Our I am moment is where the source lives.
I love that. And when we laugh together and have these conversations, it brings us laughter, especially like the good hearty laughter that we often have with each other. It really um, brings in that childlike sense of wonder and awe that is source, right? That
Mm-mm.
is that feeling of oneness. I love that. I love that you brought that up. That's so beautiful. And sitting in nature is definitely one of the ways that we connect to the yada yada, the all
Right.
that is, the source, whatever you want to call it. Sitting in nature is a beautiful way. I just taught my teenagers this way of connecting. So it was a guided meditation, but one where we weren't outside even, but I said, I want you to practice this when the weather is right outdoors. And I want you to just tune in to all of your senses and one at a time, taking a minute or two with each sense, where you first use sight because you're getting settled and your eyes are open, and simply notice all of the colors around you. Notice the way the leaves move in the wind. Notice the way the grass is coming in a little greener, or notice, whatever you notice. So eyes first, then close your eyes so that you can go deeper and listen for a minute or two, and then go on and smell. And especially in spring, this is a really fun one because all these new smells are coming in every day, might smell different. And then you use your sense of touch. How do you feel? Like, how do your clothes feel on your body? Is there wind blowing? So you're just getting so present and quiet because you're putting your attention on each sense. And that quiet is connection.
I completely agree. It's one of the reasons why I meditate. Some people
Mm.
talk about meditation. They talk about, well, you have to meditate. No, you don't have to meditate. You
No, I mean, what I
know,
just described is a way of meditating.
right. It's a form of meditation. Exactly
Mhm.
right. There's no specific way. I like to go in my room and just kind of shut down, and much like you said earlier, not have social media, not have the phone
Mhm.
ringing, not have just giving myself that time twice a day,
Mhm.
and sitting in that feeling of love that I am, and consciously in present moment feeling it.
Mhm.
Um, I often talk to people. People ask me about sleeping, um, and I explain to them what happens to me when I go to bed. I go into bed and I lay down and I'm on the bed and I have this awareness of where my mind is. And my awareness first is I'm thinking about the things that happened during the day. My mind is thinking about those things, right? And then there comes this moment where I'm suddenly aware that I'm no longer thinking about those things. And I am actually, it's like I'm looking at the backside of my eyelids.
Mm.
I feel like I'm inside my body, but not of my body. And I'm experiencing this darkness. And I experienced that little moment of just being in that non-responsive outer world doesn't affect me
Mhm.
experience. And then what happens is before I actually drift off into sleep, within that darkness, I start to see movements of light and colors. And then I drift off into sleep. And this happens to me every night, every night of my life.
Wow.
And what's fascinating to me is when I assess that process, to me, I think it's literally getting closer to source at night. I think that this journey in this physical world is literally being away. And every 16 hours, our body says, all right, go to sleep so we can go home for a while.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah, that's cool. I fall asleep too quickly, thankfully, to notice much of anything. But I wish that meditation were the way that I connect deeply. And even though I do it almost every single day, that's really a practice of just being quiet for me and actively becoming the observer and just trying to find the space between my thoughts and find the pause. And unless it's a really good one, or I go for longer than usual, I've exerted myself, or once in a Reiki training that was like the bomb of meditation, and I felt really deeply connected to spirit. And most of the time, it's just a practice for me to get still. And where I connect often with spirit is through signs. So that's another way to connect with spirit, right? Looking for signs or being open to signs. And,
Mhm.
if I'm having a question, I'll ask, I'll ask the whatever, the yada yada. Just like, could you help me with this? Because I'm not getting the answers on my own. So could you give me some signs? Can you help me? And, in the car or on whatever playlist or random radio I'm listening to, song lyrics will come through that are exactly what I need to hear.
Right.
When I was considering leaving my full-time job, knowing that that was an eventual thing, but wondering if this was the right time, I asked for signs. So it combines, right? Meditation. In my meditation, at the end of my meditation, I asked for a sign. And I always say, please make it so very clear that I can't miss it, because I will be sure to say, no, not really. That's not clear enough. I can't be positive. So I always ask, please make it so clear that I can't deny it's a sign. You get to be specific with spirit, my friends. And so I was contemplating the job, and that was my question. And I asked for a sign, and I said those words. And like 5 minutes after I came out of meditation, I hopped on my computer to start working, and I opened up Facebook, and there was a picture of a door, and the caption read, "Here's your door. When will you walk through it?" I just did what you did. I burst out laughing. And I said, "Thank you. That's a really clear sign. Now, could you do it 2 more days in a row, please?" So I can be really, really sure. And no lie, the next day and the next day, I sat down again at the end of my meditation and I asked that very same question. Please show me another sign, make it really clear, because I'm really hard to convince. And I can't remember what the signs were the next 2 days, but they were also so very clear. The third day I just said, okay, thank you. I got it. And now I will just feel into when the right moment is.
Right.
I went to work. I wrote my resignation letter and I just kept it until I felt like it was the right moment to talk to my boss. And about 3 weeks later, I was going into the back offices to make a copy my boss's office was across from the copy room. And I just felt like this whoosh pulling me into her office. And I was like, oh, this is it. And so I just paused and looked at her and I said, do you have a minute? And she looked at me. She said, no, no. Because she knew that this was the time, because it was coming, right? It was meant to be. So yeah, so looking for signs is such a beautiful way. What kind of signs have you been shown? I mean, so many, I'm sure. Pick your favorite story.
Oh my gosh, signs. I've asked for signs. I always get signs. And I'll tell you why I think that happens in mixing science and spirituality in a second. But some of the greatest signs, the one big one I mentioned in the last episode was I had heard about all my past life from all these psychics, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going there, not going there, not going there, not going there. I need a sign. And I open up that book by Jess Stern about Edgar Cayce, and it says John the Beloved would again be named John. And I'm like, oh God, no. That was a big sign. I after reading The Messengers, I would say I need a sign. And one of the biggest signs that I ever got in my life was I had read The Messengers, which has a whole 444 thing all through it. And I walked into a Best Buy and I turned around and all of the appliances on the wall were flashing and they all said 444. It was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Right. But like 25 things were going 444. Right now, I'm not 100% sure what the messages that I'm getting, but I am getting 1212 daily. And I'm there's some people say it's completion, some people say it's something, but I'm getting 1212 daily, and I don't know what that's about. But let's talk about the scientific and the spiritual about signs, because I think signs are fascinating. You know, we live our spiritual moment is our present moment, and our past is just a collection of present moment memories, and our future just a place where we set present moment goals, right? Goals for our next present moment. And the subconscious mind has two jobs. The first job is to collect those memories and store that underlying subconscious belief. But the second job is where signs come from. When we, in our I am moment, consciously focus on something, our subconscious mind shows us the pathway. And to give you an example, if I like Corvettes, I'll start seeing Corvettes everywhere because my conscious mind starts focusing on Corvettes, right? So your subconscious mind does that on a as part of the process. But where does the process come from? Now we know that scientifically, that's measurable. They've been able to measure that happens.
Yeah, there's a name for that, and I can't remember what it is right now.
Yeah, and what it really is or take our I am creative moment, you know, the God moment, as I call it, right? In this I am moment, we have said, I want a sign. And so we look for a sign asking God for a sign. Well, God is everything you see in this experience, in my opinion. We live in the image of God. And so it is formed in the image around us, and it shows us to us. This is a direct communication from source. When we have communicated to source, we want a sign, and source, we're using our subconscious mind shows us this way. But now the interesting thing about that is I'm using these terms, subconscious mind, conscious mind, all this stuff. Science does not take leaps of faith. Science is only measurable facts. So for the science to say that our subconscious mind shows us these things, it's just science proving spirituality.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's just, I mean, it just really comes down to that. So to me, it's fascinating because whenever I've asked for a sign, I've gotten a sign. Whenever I've needed someone, you know, and when I think I told you the story, I was at a real estate convention in Florida, and everything was going crazy, and I was really trying to figure out where I was going spiritually because there was so much going on with past lives and teaching and talking, and you know, a book was being written about me and all this stuff was happening. And I was like, okay, I really just need some guidance. I just need some guidance. And I'm at this real estate convention, and I look over the room, and there's this elderly guy, white mustache, handlebar, white hair. And he keeps looking at me in the room. He's looking at me. And it came time for the break, and I went out and went to the restroom. And I come walking out of the restroom. He's standing there. He says, "So what did you learn, John?" And meanwhile, we'd never even introduced ourselves. But he called me. What have you learned, John? I said, "Well, I think I could use some of this in our." We were flipping houses at the time, my wife and I. He says, "No, I'm not talking about that." I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" He says, "Your spiritual journey. What have you learned?" And I'm like, and he and I sat down and we talked and missed the second half of the day.
Wow.
Because I asked for a guide, and a guide showed up to guide me and help clarify some things for me. And the most fascinating thing about how he did that was not through spoon feeding me information. It was by asking pointed questions that made me discover, made me find. And I think that's the benefit of science, is that we have to discover, we have to find, we have to, we are creating our experience, and we can ask for signs, we can ask for a journey, we can ask for guides, but we ourselves have to take the leap to say that is a sign, that is a guide, that is a connection to source, as it were.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good story.
Well, and that has happened to me many times. It happened to me in Germany. I was doing a show, and this guy kept staring at me across the room, and he ended up coming back to our tour bus and hanging out with us for the evening. I have no idea what his name was even. He gave me all kinds of information that night. I went to Georgia, and I was backing my camper in. The guy comes up and says, "Don't park there. The power's out on that site." And then that night, a tornado came through, and a tree had fallen right where I would have been sleeping. And he was gone, right? Right. But at that time, my intention was, I am going. Oh, and actually, that whole trip was about signs, because when I was at home, I needed to leave because my father and I were not getting along, and I needed to get out of there. And I had my little travel trailer, and I'm like, "Where am I going to go? Where am I going to go? Give me a sign." And I turned on the news, and the newscaster and the sportscaster were talking about how both of them had just named their sons Griffin. And then I started seeing the name Griffin everywhere, and the sign Griffin, all over the place. Griffin. So I'm like, I got to go. I'm going to Georgia because that's where the festival is I'm going to next. I can't get on the site for 2 weeks. Where can I go? I open up the map of Georgia. The closest state park to the fair site is in Griffin, Georgia. And I can stay there for 2 weeks.
Wow.
Right. So I pack up, I go to Griffin, Georgia. I pull my trailer in, and then that other story happened where the guy comes out and saves me from the tree. So all of that was opening to source, asking source for a sign. Yeah. See, that's what I think of people mistake is they look for externals to find their connection to source, whereas the source is at the bottom of every breath. Yeah, it's right there with you at every moment of your life. And that's when I meditate. You were talking about meditation earlier. When I meditate, I don't do breathing techniques. I don't do visualization techniques. I literally just go in there and I go, and I just feel that feeling. Yeah. And when I feel that, it makes look at that, makes the hair on my arms stand up and the goosebumps come up.
Yeah. I just want to say though, that isn't, you're practiced, right? You are a practiced meditator. And so people can get there. So if you're listening to this, like I am, and going, well, that doesn't happen for me. It takes time and practice. Like that is a commitment that John has made. And that is what all long-term meditators will say, is that, and I have experienced when I've done it more regularly for longer periods of time. I'm in a short period of time meditation right now. So, it takes practice and devotion to the practice.
And let me say this, 90% of the world doesn't think they can meditate anyway. And the
which isn't true at all.
Yeah, the reason they don't think they can is because this is what happens. They go, okay, I'm quieting my mind. Did you pay your bills? Quieting my mind. Did you turn the stove off? Oh, right. And after the third or fourth time, they say, I can't meditate.
Right. And they just
Right.
give up. And that's
They
why
give
I
up.
say it's a devotion to the practice.
Right.
Right.
Here's the big secret. Everyone goes through that exact same process.
Mhm.
But the people who become good meditators are the ones who continue doing it until the quiet times last longer.
Yes. Yes.
And that's the secret, really, to meditation.
Absolutely.
But you don't need to meditate to connect to source.
No, and I wanted to
connected.
share one more way, which doesn't require any sort of meditation at all, but it is in itself a meditation, which is conversations with your soul. So in this one, I often assign my students to do this one, where you have a question, you write it on the top of the paper, and then you free write. So you set a timer for 5 or 10 minutes and you just write, and you don't censor and you don't edit and you don't stop. It's just keeping that pen or pencil on the paper and writing nonstop until that timer goes off, and then going back and seeing what you read. And 100% of the time, some wisdom has come through that you are like, I didn't write that.
Yep. I do that with every private session that I do with someone, one of my private readings.
You do, don't you?
Every session, an hour before I sit down, I just start writing. And what I've been doing lately, and I don't know if you've seen this on my channel, Tamara, I know you're so busy, but I've been opening up and doing live channeling.
I have not seen that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. You go over to my channel, you'll look up the ones that say I opened up and right.
Cool.
And all I'm doing is as I'm rather than writing it, I'm just closing my eyes, dropping into source, and it starts coming through. And it comes through fast to the point where I'm oftentimes trying to catch up.
Wow.
It's coming through. So yeah, I've been doing that over there. And maybe I'll do that someday on here too. Not today.
That'd be fun.
Not today though.
Maybe next time.
maybe.
All right. Cool.
So anyway, well, this has been lovely.
Yeah, that was nice. Thanks for that chat.
I have to say to our audience, this episode and the last episode, these topics were Tamara Zoner's brilliant ideas, and I appreciate that she had them, because I was drawing a complete blank.
And see, I would say that I've felt very connected to source. And so usually when you're like, what's our topic? I'll be like, oh, geez, I don't know. And I'll Google, like, what can we talk about? And today it was just like, oh, here it is. This one and that one. And I think it's because I've spent some time getting really quiet. Yesterday, I gave myself a full hour-long Reiki session and then took a bath and just really took a lot of quiet inward time. The dog is over at her grandma and grandpa's house. The kids are at their dad's and Mike is away. And so it was like a really beautiful opportunity for me to actually take the time. So I think part of my not meditating for very long problem lately has been that there's this dog interrupting me all the time, and I haven't quite worked it out how to find that stillness throughout the day for a longer period of time. So I'm just doing bite-sized chunks, and people, that is okay. You do what you can do.
Yeah. And realize it's just getting very present is connecting to source, because it's the I am moment. And when you bring yourself present into the I am moment, you are one with God. And when I say, God's at the bottom of every breath, realize is that the only thing that happens when you exhale is you set down the physical world issues, and they're gone. And that's the feeling of God right there. So that's my thought anyway.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right.
Take us out of here, lady. Take us out of here.
All right. It's so good. I feel every time that we have these conversations, I feel more connected to the yada yada. So I'm grateful for you, our audience, for being here to give us this platform, and for John always to have these beautiful conversations about spirituality. So tell us what you think. What's your favorite way to connect to spirit? And let us know what other conversations you'd like to have with us and hear from us. And until then, we will see you or talk to you next week. Bye.
Thank you for joining us at Spirit Cafe, a place where you can safely explore your spirituality without the guilt or dogma of religion. Leave all comments and suggestions on the Spirit Cafe podcast Facebook page.